the heart of the unforgiving West, a woman's silence was her only shield. They called her Ghost Girl, for her voice had died the day she watched injustice hang her mother from a cottonwood tree. Cast out by her own kind, traded like a sack of grain to the feared Apache, Alara believed her story was over. But in the land of painted canyons and star-dusted nights, she met a warrior whose silence mirrored her own. His name was Kale, a man whose eyes held the fury of a storm and the stillness of the grave. He did not ask for her voice. He demanded her fire. This is not a story of a woman who was saved. It is the story of how two silences collided to create a love so wild, so fierce, it would carve its name into the very stone of the earth, a testament that even in the harshest lands, silence loves too. Part 1. The Trade. The Dust of Redemption. A town whose name was a bitter joke clung to Alara's bare feet like a shroud. It was a place built on whispers and judgment, where a quiet tongue was mistaken for a guilty heart. Magistrate Thorne, a man whose soul was as barren as the land he governed, stood on the rickety porch of his office, a smirk playing on his thin lips. Before him stood Chief Chayton and his warriors, their presence a stark, proud contrast to the town's cowering hypocrisy. The deal was simple: grain for a fragile peace. And one more thing, Thorne announced, his voice oozing false generosity. He gestured dismissively towards Alara, who stood beside a burlap sack of corn, her thin frame trembling almost imperceptibly. A token of goodwill. She is of no use to us. Mute. Perhaps your people can find a purpose for her. The word mute was a brand seared into her skin. Alara didn't flinch. Years of silent endurance had taught her to build a fortress behind her eyes. She stared at a crack in the dirt. Her world shrunk to that single, jagged line. The townsfolk murmured, their pity as sharp as their scorn. A broken thing for the savages. But Chief Chayton's gaze was different. It was not pitying, nor was it cruel. It was assessing, ancient. He looked past the grime and the fear, seeing something Thorne and his ilk never could. He gave a slow, deliberate nod, accepting the grain. Then, to the gasping disbelief of the crowd, he walked directly to Alara. He did not grab her. He did not command her. He extended a hand, palm open, an invitation as clear as a mountain spring. It was the first choice she'd been offered in years. Her eyes lifted from the dirt, meeting his. In them, she saw not a master, but a beginning. Her small, calloused hand rose and settled into his. His grip was firm, a silent promise. As she followed him, leaving the only life she'd known, a wild, terrifying hope flickered in the desolate landscape of her heart. The journey was 2 days of wind, rock, and a profound, shared silence. The warriors with Chayton moved with the grace of predators, their eyes missing nothing, yet they offered her a wide berth of respect. No one spoke to her, but the silence wasn't empty. It was watchful, protective. On the second night, as the fire spit embers into the infinite, star-strewn sky, a new figure emerged from the shadows. He was taller than the others, his shoulders broad, his face a mask of hard angles and sorrow. His eyes, dark and turbulent, met hers for a fleeting, searing moment before he turned away. This was Kale. The whispers she'd overheard from the warriors told his story. His family lost to white men's fever, his voice sealed away with his grief. A silence born of rage, meeting a silence born of trauma. He approached the fire, his movements fluid and noiseless. He took a bowl of stew from the pot, and, instead of joining the other men, he walked to the edge of the firelight where Alara sat. He didn't speak. He simply placed the bowl beside her, close enough to feel its warmth. Then he retreated to his own solitude, his back a rigid wall against the world. It was not kindness as she knew it. It was a raw, unspoken acknowledgement. I see you. I see your emptiness. Mine is like it. That night, huddled in a borrowed blanket, Alara ate the stew. Diwu. It tasted of smoke, salt, and the first stirrings of a dangerous, untamed connection. She pressed her fingers to her throat. Still nothing, but for the first time, The silence felt less like a cage and more like a territory. A wild land she and the silent warrior now shared. Part 2. The language of hands. The Apache village was a living thing, nestled in the protective embrace of a crimson canyon. Life moved to the rhythm of the sun and the seasons, a stark contrast to the frantic, grasping pace of redemption. Here, Alara's silence was not a void to be filled, but a space to be respected. The women taught her through action, not words. A hand gesture showed her how to grind blue corn. A shared glance guided her to the river for water. It was a language of doing, of being, and Alara, a natural observer, learned quickly. The trust they placed in her was a balm on her wounded soul, allowing her room to breathe, to simply exist without the pressure of explanation. But it was Kale who spoke to her in a language only they could understand. He was a ghost at the edge of her vision, a constant, brooding presence. He never spoke, never intruded, but he was always there. One morning, as she struggled to lift a heavy pail of water, his shadow fell over her. Before she could react, he was beside her, his hand closing over hers on the handle. His touch was electric, a jolt of lightning on a clear day. It wasn't gentle. It was possessive, strong, his calloused fingers branding her skin. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, the world fell away. His gaze was a storm, raw and intense, stripping away her defenses, demanding to see the fire she kept hidden. He saw it. He saw the fury, the pain, the unbroken spirit cowering in the dark. He held her gaze for a long, breathless moment, a silent battle of wills and a desperate, unspoken communion. Then, just as quickly, he released her, lifted the pail as if it weighed nothing, and carried it to her dwelling before melting back into the shadows. He left gifts. Not the trinkets of children, but pieces of himself. A hawk's feather, its edge perfectly sharp, left on her doorstep. A length of sinew, stronger than any rope, for her to mend her worn shoes. These were not offerings of peace. They were offerings of strength. I am a warrior. You are a survivor. We are the same. The turning point came during the festival of the harvest moon. The village was alive with chanting and the thunderous beat of the main drum. Alara stood apart, an observer as always. Chief Chayton, his wise eyes seeing all, approached her. He held a small, unadorned hand drum. "Your voice is quiet," he said, his voice a low rumble. "But your heart is loud. Let it speak." He placed the drum in her hands. She hesitated, the smooth hide cool against her trembling fingers. Then, she felt his eyes on her. Across the fire, Kale was watching, his usual mask of indifference gone, replaced by a raw, burning intensity. It was a challenge, a dare. Her fingers tightened on the wooden frame. She struck it once, a soft, hesitant tap. Then again, harder. The sound was a shock, a physical manifestation of the scream trapped in her throat. She looked at Kale. He gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. More. The rhythm found her then, erupting from a place she thought long dead. It was a wild, frantic beat, a story of loss, of rage, of a spirit that refused to be extinguished. Her hands flew across the drum, a blur of motion. It was not music. It was a declaration of war against her own silence. The villagers fell quiet, their own chants fading as they turned to listen to this raw, untamed sound. When she finally stopped, her chest heaving, her hands raw, a profound silence fell over the clearing. She looked at Kale. His eyes were blazing, a mixture of fierce pride and a dark, possessive hunger that made her shiver. He had not just listened. He had heard the deepest parts of her soul. That night, she understood. Their connection was not one of gentle understanding. It was a collision of two broken, wild things finding their reflection in the other's darkness. Part 3. The storm within and without. The sky turned a bruised purple, the air thick with the smell of rain and ozone. A summer storm, violent and sudden, descended upon the canyon. The village moved with practiced efficiency, securing lodges, gathering livestock. Alara worked alongside the others, her body moving with a purpose she hadn't known before. Through the chaos, she saw Kale. He was a force of nature himself, securing the horses, his powerful frame moving with lethal grace. Twice their paths crossed, his arm brushing hers, sending a jolt of heat through her rain-soaked clothes. No words were exchanged, none were needed. Their awareness of each other was a current running beneath the storm's fury. Just as the wind turned into a shrieking banshee, she saw him disappear into the small, fragile smoke hut where the most sacred herbs were kept. It was not built to withstand such a gale. A primal fear, cold and sharp, pierced through her. No one else seemed to notice. They were all seeking shelter. She didn't think. She ran. She burst through the hide flap just as a gust of wind tore a hole in the wall. Kale was there, his back to her, trying to shield a stack of ceremonial pipes. The roof groaned, a sound of splintering wood. Kale! The name was a strangled gasp, the first sound to escape her lips in 5 years. It was rough, foreign, torn from her throat by the sheer force of her terror. He spun around, his eyes wide with shock, not at the storm, but at the sound of her voice. In that split second of hesitation, the main roof beam cracked. He was directly beneath it. With a surge of adrenaline, Alara launched herself at him, her small body colliding with his hard frame. The impact sent them both stumbling backward, out of the hut and into the mud, just as the entire structure collapsed with a deafening crash. They lay tangled in the deluge, the rain plastering her hair to her face, mud sucking at their clothes. He was on top of her, his body shielding hers from the worst of the storm. She could feel the frantic beat of his heart against her own, the warmth of his breath on her cheek. He stared down at her, his expression a maelstrom of shock, relief, and something else. Something fiercely protective and possessive. He pushed himself up, pulling her with him. They scrambled for the shelter of a nearby cave, collapsing inside, soaked and panting. The storm raged outside, a symphony of their own inner turmoil. In the close confines of the cave, the air crackled with unspoken electricity. He reached out, his calloused thumb brushing a streak of mud from her cheek. The gesture was surprisingly tender, yet his eyes burned with an untamed fire. He leaned in, his face inches from hers. She could see the flecks of gold in his dark irises, smell the scent of rain and earth on his skin. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. His gaze said everything. "You spoke. For me." Her own voice was lost again, but not to fear. It was lost to the overwhelming intensity of his presence. She lifted a trembling hand, her fingers tracing the hard line of his jaw. It was a question, an answer, a surrender. He captured her hand, his grip tight, and brought it to his lips, pressing a rough, searing kiss into her palm. It was a brand, a claim. In the heart of the storm, surrounded by chaos, they forged a new pact. It was not gentle. It was not safe. It was a wild, desperate acknowledgement that they belonged to each other, bound not by words, but by the silent, violent language of survival, and a love that was as untamed as the land itself. Part 4. Carved in stone. Days after the storm, the air between Alara and Kale was different. The unspoken tension had not vanished. It had solidified into a new, profound understanding. The glances were longer, the accidental touches lingered, charged with a meaning that sent shivers down her spine. He had heard her voice, a secret now shared between them, and it had changed everything. One morning, he appeared at her dwelling as the sun painted the canyon walls in hues of fire. He said nothing, merely gestured with his head towards the high mesas. It was an invitation she could not refuse. She followed him, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. He led her up a winding, hidden path, a trail known only to the Apache. The climb was arduous, but Kale moved with an effortless power, often pausing to wait for her. His hand offered to help her over the treacherous rocks. His touch was no longer just a jolt. It was a steadying, possessive heat that spread through her entire body. They arrived at a sun-drenched plateau, a sacred place scattered with ancient petroglyphs carved into the flat faces of massive boulders. The air was still, filled with the weight of centuries. Kale led her to the largest stone, its surface a tapestry of stories told in symbols. He pointed to a carving of a spiral, a symbol of a journey or a life force. Beside it, a figure stood, small but defiant. He tapped the carving, then tapped his own chest, and finally, his eyes burning into hers, he pointed at her. "This is your story. A journey inward, a spirit, unbroken." Tears pricked her eyes. To be seen so completely, without a single word. It was a gift more precious than any jewel. She felt a sudden fierce need to answer, to add her own mark to this silent conversation. She picked up a sharp piece of flint and, kneeling before the stone, she began to carve. Her hands were steady now, filled with purpose. She etched the image of a hand drum, the symbol of her reawakening. As she worked, Kale watched, his presence a warm, protective shield at her back. When she was finished, he took the flint from her hand, his fingers brushing hers, a deliberate, lingering touch. Beside her drum, he carved a single powerful image, a lightning bolt. It was perfect. The drum, her voice, the lightning, his fierce, sudden impact on her life. Their symbols, side by side, forever etched in stone. My rhythm, your fire. Together. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the plateau, he turned to her. The air grew thick, heavy with anticipation. He moved closer, closing the small space between them until she had to tilt her head back to look at him. "Elara," he said. Her name on his lips was a low, rough caress. It was the first time he had spoken it, and the sound resonated deep within her. He lowered his head, and his mouth claimed hers. It was not a gentle kiss. It was a storm, a clash of lightning and thunder. It was fierce, desperate, and deeply possessive, a raw expression of all the unspoken things that had passed between them. It tasted of dust, wind, and a wild, untamed longing. She responded with equal fire, her arms winding around his neck, pulling him closer. Her silence finally breaking not into words, but into a passionate, physical declaration. In that kiss, on that sacred ground, they were no longer two separate, broken souls. They were fused, forged into something new and powerful by the heat of their shared silence and the wild, undeniable love that had taken root in the unforgiving soil of the West. Their story was no longer just carved in stone. It was written in the very fabric of their beings. Part 5. A voice for war, a voice for love. The arrival of the two traders was an ugly stain on the landscape. They rode in on tired mules, their smiles too wide, their eyes greedy. They called themselves merchants, but Elara knew their kind. They were vultures, circling, looking for weakness. Their gaze lingered on the women, a slimy, possessive appraisal that made her skin crawl. And their eyes fell on her, the ghost girl, with a particularly predatory curiosity. Kale materialized at her side, a silent, menacing shadow. His body was a shield between her and the trader's leering stares. Chief Chayton handled them with cool diplomacy, his words polite but his message clear. They were not welcome here. The taller trader, a man named Fitch, let his gaze drift back to Elara. "She got a name?" he asked, his voice slick with insinuation. "Or does she just answer to a whistle?" Before Chayton could respond, Kale stepped forward. The movement was fluid, dangerous. "Her name is Elara," he said, his voice a low, deadly growl. It was English, flawless, and cold as riverstone. "And you are not worthy to speak it." Fitch, taken aback by the warrior's perfect English and menacing tone, could only stammer. "No offense meant. You have been breathing since you arrived," Kale interrupted, his eyes like chips of obsidian. "That is offense enough. Leave." The traders, unnerved by the raw hostility, made a hasty departure, but their presence left a foul residue. Later that evening, Elara sat by the fire, her drum untouched in her lap. The trader's words had reopened old wounds, reminding her of a world where she was an object, a curiosity. Cale approached, kneeling before her. He held out a gift, a new set of drumsticks, carved from ironwood, one wrapped in a strip of crimson cloth, the color of his ceremonial paint, the color of his fire. They made your silence feel like a cage again, he stated, his voice soft now, for her alone. A single tear traced a path through the dust on her cheek. I hate them, she whispered, the words raw. I know. He reached out, his thumb gently wiping the tear away. His touch was a strange mix of tenderness and raw power. Your silence is your armor, Elira, but a warrior must know when to draw their sword. Your voice, it is a weapon. You showed me that in the storm. Do not let men like them make you forget its power. He leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. I did not speak for years, he confessed, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through her. My grief was a stone in my throat. I thought words were a betrayal to my family's memory. But you, your silent strength, your fire. You reminded me that a voice can be used for more than sorrow. It can be used for war, and it can be used for love. He pulled back, his intense gaze holding hers. Speak for me, Elira, he whispered, a raw plea. Let me hear your voice when it is not torn from you by fear. Let it be a choice, a gift. Her heart ached with a love so fierce, it was painful. She looked at this powerful, broken man who saw her, who understood her, who loved her not in spite of her silence, but because of it. She lifted a hand to his face, her fingers tracing the proud line of his cheekbone. Cale, she said, her voice clear and steady in the firelight. It was the first time she had spoken his name, and it felt like coming home. My warrior. His eyes closed, a shudder running through him. He captured her hand, pressing a kiss to the pulse point on her wrist. The fire crackled, the stars wheeled overhead, and in the heart of the wild, a love born in silence found its voice. Part 6. I am my own name. The past arrived on horseback, wearing the blue coat of the U.S. Cavalry. The lieutenant, a young man with an old man's weary eyes, carried a folded paper that felt to Elira like a death warrant. He stood before Chief Chayton, his words formal but sharp. We are here for a runaway. A white girl, given to you in a trade. Her name is Elira Thorne. Her town wants her back. Thorne, the magistrate's name. They had erased her father's memory and branded her with the name of the man who had discarded her. A cold fury, clean and sharp, rose within her. Cale was instantly at her side, his hand resting on the hilt of the knife at his belt. His presence was a silent declaration. You will take her over my dead body. She was not a runaway, Chief Chayton replied, his voice calm and steady. She was an offering. We accepted her. She is a citizen of redemption, the lieutenant insisted, his gaze scanning the crowd, searching for her. She belongs there. I belong to no one. The words rang out, clear and strong, across the silent clearing. Elira stepped forward, away from the protection of the lodges, away from the shadow of Cale. She stood alone, her chin high, the necklace of symbols, feather, spiral, drum, lightning bolt, resting against her collarbone. The lieutenant stared, momentarily speechless. You can speak. I can, Elira said, her eyes locking with his. My name is not Thorne. That is the name of the man who sold me. I am Elira, just Elira. And this is my home. This is not your home, the lieutenant argued, recovering. This is a savage land. You are forfeiting your rights, your inheritance. My inheritance was a legacy of shame and a noose around my mother's neck. She shot back, her voice ringing with a passion that made the soldiers shift uneasily. My rights were to be silent and obedient. Here, I have a voice. I have a family. I have a love that your world cannot comprehend. I have carved my name in stone. It will outlast your paper laws. The lieutenant was stunned into silence. He looked from her defiant face to the unyielding warrior at her side, to the stoic chief, and to the silent ring of Apache warriors who had gathered behind them. He saw no fear, only resolve. He sighed, a sound of utter defeat. He folded the paper and shoved it back into his coat. The magistrate will not be pleased. His pleasure is not my concern, Alara said, her voice softening now. The fire banked but still burning hot. As the soldiers rode away, a sacred quiet settled over the village. No one cheered. It was a victory too profound for noise. Later, as the moon rose, Kale found her by the river. He came to stand behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. He was her anchor, her rock. "Was I brave?" she whispered, leaning her head back against his shoulder. He was silent for a long moment. "No," he said finally, his voice a low rumble against her ear. "Brave is facing a fear you think will break you. You were not afraid. You were something more powerful." "What?" she asked, turning in his arms to face him. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs stroking her cheekbones. His eyes, full of a fierce, consuming love, held hers. "You were yourself," he said. "And that, my wild heart, is the most powerful thing in this world." He kissed her then, a long, slow kiss of reverence and adoration. It was not the fire of their first kiss, nor the storm of their reunion. It was a kiss of profound peace, a promise of a future built together. She was no longer the ghost girl, no longer the mute. She was Alara. She was seen. She was loved. And she was finally home. In the end, Alara's story was not about finding her voice, but about owning her silence. She learned that love does not need words to be true, and strength does not need volume to be heard. Her life, intertwined with Kale's, became a testament to a different kind of power, the power of being seen for who you truly are. Theirs is a story that reminds us that the deepest connections are often forged in the quiet spaces, and that the wildest hearts can find their home in a shared, profound stillness. It teaches us that true belonging is not about where you are from, but who you are with. Thank you for joining us on Wild West Stories. If this tale of untamed love and silent strength moved you, please like this video, share it with others who appreciate the raw history of the frontier, and subscribe to our channel for more unforgettable Wild West tales. We honor the past by telling its most powerful stories.